Mr. Speaker, mine is a short reaction to your communication. Since you have closed the chapter, I'll make my comments when you open. To congratulate you, Mr. Speaker, you know, last week when you called me the whip for Katonga, I told the colleagues here that since you are an OB, you understand our issues. We are happy that you are a speaker, having gone through our training. We only pray that what is disturbing Uganda, you use that position to resolve, including of our grandparents retiring. The issue of retiring, then they can compare notes, as you said, when they are there in retirement. The issue I wanted to bring to your attention, using that window of an OB, Mr. Speaker, we have 36 FDC leaders who were kidnapped from Kenya by ESO and Ugandan military. I don't know whether Uganda simply walks into another country. We had had problems here with Rwanda because Rwanda was accused of coming into Uganda and kidnapping refugees. One of the 36 is actually a registered refugee in Kenya. There was no extradition order. They had gone to attend leadership training. They were kidnapped and kicked. And their stories, government will need to listen to them. While they were jointly picked by the army here and Kenya, the Kenyans didn't beat them. They are only teasing them that for them they are chasing you, you go back to your 7. But the point is, some of them were seriously beaten. We want government, Mr. Speaker, to tell us, under which arrangement did they go to Kenya to kidnap FDC leaders who had gone for leadership training? Why did they beat them? And they should tell us why did they, among the 36, because one of the 36 is a refugee who left Uganda, registered with UNHCR as a refugee. So, Mr. Speaker, that is my prayer. I thought we should benefit from having an FDC in the chair to have this matter, raised. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
So, government side, why are you kidnapping my OBs? Attorney General, I think you can, from the words of Honorable Semuju.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Member, I am not aware that any people were abducted. What I know is that 36 people whom you say are from FDC, I don't know, were charged in court for terrorism.
Yes. Procedure. Honorable Segona.
Mr. Speaker, for the last 22 years I've been a lawyer, and my land friend, the Honorable Chiriwa Chiwanuka, having been a lawyer even much longer, knows that a lawyer only acts on instruction. The instructions of the Attorney General are standing instructions under the Constitution, 119, and they only relate to matters of law. Now we are dealing with matters involving the deployment of forces out of the country that managed to go and Kisumu managed to go and get back these Ugandans. I don't want to speculate on how they got them, whether they kidnapped them, whether they used the window of somebody's son who said he can march to Westlands in 2 weeks or not. And clearly that's not a matter for the Attorney General. The Attorney General can advise us on matters before court where they were placed under his hands. Issues to do with how they were arrested, abducted, and or kidnapped are issues to do with the minister responsible for security and therefore the docket of ESO, or if it was police, the Minister of Internal Affairs and how he managed to cross the borders unnoticed to get these young Ugandans. I am constrained to seek your procedural guidance and direction because you asked government, and we have a Prime Minister here. The Attorney General volunteered, which is very uncommon professionally.
Honorable colleagues, the Attorney General is a member of the front bench. This is the executive. Okay? This is the executive and they work together. Okay? So if he finds that it's not okay with him, he can always say it, and we cannot force him on the matter. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker, and I thank my learned friend for recognizing that I've been at the bar much longer. I'm likely to have more knowledge about the law than he does. What I was saying, Right Honorable Speaker, is that these people were charged, they are before court, and if there's any issues of them being beaten, wrongly arrested, can be raised in court at the appropriate time, and we have laws that deal with that. If in fact a person was tortured at the time of his arrest, that case would be dismissed. So that is a good defense you can put before the court. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, honorable colleagues, please, I think what is very important is that there is an acknowledgement from the government that these people are with them and they are already before court. Okay? I think since they are already before court, honorable colleagues. Yes, honorable Simon.
See, Mr. Speaker, I have not complained that they were charged. I am talking about bilateral matters, that you can walk into Kenya and kidnap Ugandans, like it used to happen under Amin. They were kidnapping people from Kakamega, bringing them back for torture. Under what arrangement? That's not a matter of court. Under which arrangement did you go to a Catholic church in Kenya and kidnap people and bring them without necessary legal documents?
Attorney General?
Right Honorable Speaker and honorable colleagues, even the manner in which people are collected, if at all, from a neighboring country or another country is prescribed by law. And we are saying that these people were charged, they are in court, they are properly before court, and if you think the procedure was not done properly, then you can actually be a good witness to support their release.
Thank you. But there's no one on the floor. I don't have anyone holding the floor. No. No. Honorable colleagues, all other matters to do with the national importance, emergency and all that, I'm doing under PM's time. Next item.
Item 3, statement by the leader of the opposition in response to the President's address on the state of the nation, pursuant to Rule 53 of the Rules of Procedure.
Honorable Leader of Opposition.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker and honorable colleagues, I rise today to respond to the State of the Nation address that was delivered on 6th of June 2024 as per Rule 53 of the Rules of Procedure of Parliament of Uganda. Right Honorable Speaker, the State of the Nation address is a constitutionally enshrined obligation and an annual tradition which is meant to provide a clear and comprehensive overview of our nation's progress while unveiling the government's agenda for the forthcoming year. Regrettably, the address seems to have deviated from its intended purpose, increasingly resembling a ceremonial ritual rather than a substantive and honest appraisal of our national condition. The address, while filled with proclamations of progress, appears to lack the depth and sincerity that is necessary to fully capture the complexities and challenges that are facing our nation. There is a growing dissonance between the rosy picture painted by the address, a copy of which I have, and the harsh realities experienced by many Ugandans daily. Economically,
sorry, Rob. Sorry. What's the procedure matter? Because the rope is making a statement that is provided for under the rules. Yeah. Honorable, what's the procedure matter?
Mr. Speaker, sir.
Honorable Macho, you are protected. Please, honorable colleagues, let's listen to honorable.
Mr. Speaker, congratulations for the wonderful function that you hosted us. Mr. Speaker, I'm also on a procedural matter. I'm happy that the leader of opposition is giving a response to the State of the Nation address. And his introduction, Mr. Speaker, brings a lot of innuendo, being the person who advised opposition to boycott the attend. It really beats my understanding of whether he's going to give a response with a very positive attitude towards the presidential State of a National address. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Please. No, but there's no one on the floor. Honorable Ranja, there's no one on the floor. No, honorable colleagues, my guidance is, please, let's listen to the leader of opposition in silence. This statement is delivered under Rule 53 of our Rules of Procedure, and Rule 53(2) provides for debate. Now, in case he mentions the statement you don't agree with during debate, you'll have all the time to clarify or to clear the air. Now, but in the public gallery this afternoon, we have students and teachers of Rubani Secondary School, Jinja District, represented by Honorable Wadiomu Moses Manika and Honorable Kataya Loy. They've come to observe proceedings of this House. Please join me in welcoming them, Honorable colleagues. Thank you. Honorable Leader of Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honorable Macho wanted me to take note of his presence, and I have taken note. Right, Honorable Speaker, as I proceed, economically, the address fell short of acknowledging the persistent and pervasive economic struggles that many of our citizens endure. Unemployment remains a significant issue, particularly among our youth, who are the bedrock of our future. The rising cost of living continues to burden countless families, creating an environment of economic insecurity that was not adequately addressed. Our healthcare system, a cornerstone of national well-being, remains in a precarious state. Despite assertions of improvements, the reality is blatantly different for many Ugandans who face significant challenges in accessing basic healthcare services. Our hospitals are often underfunded, understaffed, and ill-equipped. A situation that the address did not confront with the urgency it deserves. The lack of a clear and actionable plan to rectify these deficiencies is deeply concerning, Right Honorable Speaker and colleagues. Similarly, the education sector, which shapes the future of our nation, faces numerous challenges that were glossed over in the address. The ongoing issues of inadequate funding, poor infrastructure, and substandard quality of education in many of our public schools were not sufficiently acknowledged. Inadequate remedies against corruption, an enduring obstacle to our national progress, reflects a missed opportunity in the State of the Nation address. While anti-corruption efforts were referenced, mere rhetoric is insufficient. Concrete actions and innovative strategies are imperative to combat this entrenched issue. Without genuine dedication and transparent execution, phrases such as crushing the corrupt remain mere slogans, Right Honorable Speaker. Furthermore, the address failed to acknowledge the ongoing repression, censorship, and harassment with a sense of urgency and steady commitment. Our discourse must transcend rhetoric and translate into actionable plans, transparent execution, and accountable governance. It is our collective responsibility, Right Honourable Speaker, to ensure that the promises made during the State of the Nation address are not mere words, but catalysts for real and meaningful change. As representatives of the people, we are duty-bound to hold the government accountable and ensure that its promises manifest into tangible improvements in the lives of all Ugandans. Owing to the foregoing, Right Honourable Speaker, this year's opposition response to the State of the Nation address has been anchored on 3 pillars, named service delivery, corruption, and human rights. And I'll quickly adumbrate these issues. 1, urgent economic concerns, a call for reform and accountability. Right Honourable Speaker, our nation stands at a critical juncture, facing profound economic crises that threaten the very fabric of our society and the future of our beloved Uganda. The economic status of Uganda is in a dire state, starkly contradicting the government's hollow claims of progress and stability. The harsh reality is undeniable, as every Ugandan feels the deep economic pinch in their pockets. Let me talk about some aspects. Overtaxation. The burden of overtaxation is a sad reality that cannot be overstated. Our tax system, designed to fund public services, has unfortunately become a tool that erodes the economic rights of our people. It has stifled the aspirations of small business owners and the working families across our land. Businesses close not just in numbers, but in droves. Each closure a testament to a policy that demands re-evaluation. This is not sustainable, Right Honourable Speaker. Nor is it just. During the passing of the 2024-2025 tax bills, we reminded the government to develop a comprehensive taxation policy for the country, such that the imposition of any tax is informed by a well-structured tax framework that does not promote injustice. Right Honourable Speaker, the front bench promised us that that comprehensive taxation policy will come to this House before end of this year. I would like to remind them that they are left with about 4 months to deliver the comprehensive taxation policy that they promised to this House. Honourable Speaker, the domestic revenue mobilization strategy has utterly failed to achieve its core objective. The government is in desperate need of more funds for essential service delivery, so it continues to impose levies on a populace that is already suffering from severe economic hardships. This approach is unsustainable and it is unjust, placing an unbearable burden on citizens who are struggling to make ends meet. We must urgently reassess and reform our revenue collection strategies to ensure they are equitable and do not further exacerbate the economic plight of our people. Honourable Speaker, Uganda's approach to taxation has not been balanced by adequate attention to the welfare of our citizens. I'm dwelling on this issue because it's important. Ironically, as the government seeks to raise more revenue through numerous taxes, it simultaneously erodes the very base from which this revenue is meant to be drawn. You all witnessed the grievances that led to traders striking over the use of FREs by URA, the modus operandi of tax collection, and other exorbitant taxes that they have to endure, and yet, as they say, they don't see value for this tax money. Traders have reached a point where they find it increasingly difficult to continue trading. And Honourable Speaker, these traders...
Look, I will request honourable colleagues, there are special chairs we have there. Kindly create space on them. Wait. Please. Because I can see one of the intended beneficiaries is struggling. Yeah. I will request all of you honourable colleagues, you leave those seats. Thank you. Thank you. Please, sorry.
Honourable Speaker, This very week, the traders have resumed their strike. Yesterday, a couple of them closed their shops, and many are saying they will continue to do so. It's not a pleasant situation. They want to work, they want to make money, but they're finding it difficult to operate. Government promised them meetings, but it's playing hide and seek. We need to listen to these people. We cannot just dismiss them, as I have seen some government officials dismissing them and saying, you close if you want, people will go and buy commodities from elsewhere. We cannot be that callous if we are a government that claims to care about the people. Honorable Speaker and members, the state of our nation demands urgent and decisive action. We cannot afford complacency when the stakes are so high. Let me talk a bit about the increasing poverty in our country. Poverty in Uganda is a critical and multifaceted issue that affects a significant portion of our population. According to the UNICEF Country Office Annual Report of 2023, more than 41.7% of the population of Uganda is living in poverty. Multidimensional child poverty is also high at 44%, while monetary child poverty remains at 23% as of the last year of 2023. The multidimensional child poverty that has invaded our homes is tearing the fulcrum around which society is built. In a nation blessed with abundant natural resources and a hardworking population, it is a glaring contradiction, Right Honorable Speaker, that so many should have so little. Vulnerable groups, including children, the elderly, suffer disproportionately with no safety net to catch them as they fall through the cracks widened by economic hardship. Right Honorable Speaker and colleagues, you will bear witness if what I'm talking about is not reflected in the pockets of our fellow citizens, in the constituencies where you all come from, where we all come from. Let me move on to youth unemployment. Perhaps before, people are struggling to secure the necessities of life due to the rising tide of poverty. This situation demands our urgent attention and action, and this is despite the poverty reduction measures like parish development model, which this government is implementing without following our well-intentioned advice. You can't keep throwing money at people and expect them to get rich. It cannot work. It is no wonder that all the past programs such as Emyoga, Youth Livelihood and others have failed to achieve their intended purposes. And this is a confession of even some government officials. And that's why we keep bringing out another. The other fails to work, we bring another. In the case of PDM, Right Honorable Speaker, it is even more problematic that you will give 100 million shillings to a parish of 1,000 people and the same 100 million shillings to a parish of 40,000 people, as is the case in the heavily populated urban areas. This skewed mathematics alone should have alerted government about the inability of this program to ameliorate the people of Uganda. The math does not work. And again, I've seen many government officials allude to that fact. But are we listening? Youth unemployment. This is not just a challenge, Right Honorable Speaker, it is a ticking time bomb. Our young people brimming with potential and ambition are sidelined. Their dreams deferred or quashed. We have reached a distressing point where the absence of opportunity drives our youth into terrifying conditions abroad. Reports of human rights abuses against Ugandans in foreign lands are not just disturbing, they are a call to action. It is our duty to respond and to protect our citizens wherever they may be. We all get these calls from Ugandans abroad. We in the opposition and colleagues in the ruling party, we do get these calls from these Ugandans. And so it's not something outside of our reach. Furthermore, Right Honorable Speaker, the plight of our citizens working overseas, particularly in the Arab world, is taken as if it's very normal and okay to mistreat Ugandans in the diaspora. The government has continuously been urged to take immediate action to recruit labor attaches in major cities and countries where Ugandans are employed. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs must ask these attaches to focus specifically on labor-related issues and to provide technical backstopping and consular support in all our foreign missions. They gave us an update that they did it for some. We want it across. The government's role doesn't stop at levying numerous taxes, but as a sovereign state, it is mandated to negotiate stronger bilateral labor agreements to protect its citizens who are beyond its borders. It's essential to have a bilateral agreement in place before exporting labor to any country. Honorable Speaker, we desire a state that empowers the youth with skills and opportunities here at home, transforming potential energy into kinetic achievements in the immediacy. The government must defend the dignity of every Ugandan at home and abroad, and ensuring that their labor rights are not violated. Honorable Speaker and colleagues, let me talk a bit about public debt, our worsening public debt. This, coupled with the government's high appetite for borrowing, poses a significant threat to Uganda's economic stability. The situation is exacerbated by rampant corruption and sheer irresponsibility in managing borrowed funds, leading to the payment of commitment fees for unutilized loans. The IMF report, titled Uganda's Public Debt Dilemma, What Lies Ahead in 2024, highlights a critical financial issue for Uganda. Interest payments on loans are consuming a significant portion of the country's budget and our domestic revenues, creating a substantial burden. Additionally, a large number of amounts of borrowed funds is either underutilized or misused. For instance, loans intended for sectors such as health, education, innovation, technology development and transfer, manufacturing, private sector development, public sector development, regional development, etc., remain unutilized or poorly managed. This exacerbates the financial challenges faced by our country. For record purposes, Honorable Speaker, we have provided comprehensive lists of borrowed funds that remain unutilized, and this is attached as an appendix so that colleagues can look at it. It is worrying. We borrow this money, it remains idle, and yet we are paying interest on it. Honorable Speaker, it feeds into the narrative that we hear, that some public officials do this deliberately, make sure this money comes, and then they put it on fixed deposit accounts for their own benefit. Meanwhile, it's not being utilized for the purpose for which it was borrowed. The taxpayer is paying interest. That's a narrative out there. And this here goes to feed that narrative. I have provided that list, and I'd like to request colleagues to take time and read. These are actually government documents, so that you don't assume I'm saying this just because I am leader of the opposition. It is a reality that we need to deal with. Let's not borrow money that we are not ready to utilize. Right, Honorable Speaker, by June 2024, Uganda's public debt had skyrocketed to 97.499 trillion, and the government has continued to borrow even more. This wanton borrowing spree without corresponding value for money undermines the country's fiscal health and burdens future generations with debt repayment obligations. Honorable Speaker, not long ago we had a debate here with the Minister of Finance, who was trying to downsize our debt burden. And according to them, they were saying the obligations we have to Ugandans who have either supplied to government or done work for government and have not been paid, all those obligations. Minister of Finance said for them they don't want to consider that as debt. And we are saying, but no, when a Ugandan or whoever supplies a service to you or a commodity to you, and you take 1 year, 2 years, 3 years without paying them, one, it is a debt. But number two, businesses are going to crumble. How do we expect to get taxes from these businesses? Somebody borrows a loan, gets a loan from the bank to supply, because they've got a tender, a contract with government. They acquire a loan from the bank, they supply to government, and then government takes 3, 4, 5 years without paying them. Surely, how do we expect these businesses to survive? How? It doesn't make sense at all. We need to prioritize them. Right, Honorable Speaker, in just 5 years, Uganda's public debt has more than doubled. In just 5 years. And that's highlighted in the Auditor General's report of 2024. The report indicates that the public debt surged from 46 trillion to 97 trillion in just 5 years. Disturbingly, Right Honorable Speaker, there is a lack of a direct correlation between the accumulated loans and tangible development. And this signals a severe lack of accountability for taxpayers' money. This particularly is unacceptable in the current context, where poverty levels are rising and economic hardships are intensifying. The failure to translate borrowed funds into meaningful development projects is a betrayal of public trust, which we have, and a misuse of national resources. This government promised to build a specialized hospital at Lubowa, and so far, over 600 billion shillings has been sunk into this project. And Ministry of Finance confirmed that figure here in the House, over 600 billion shillings that we have sunk into Lubowa specialized hospital. But there's nothing to show for all of that money. No wonder they cannot give access to us as legislators to see what's happening there at the site, yet the money is appropriated here. I find that very quixotic, Right Honorable Speaker. Government comes to us to appropriate money. We do. And then when we want to play our oversight role, we cannot. The health committee tried to access that site. They were denied access. I went because my responsibility is to keep the government in check. Together with my colleagues, we went. We were denied access. The Speaker told us that a delegation led by yourself, Right Honorable Speaker, as Deputy Speaker, will go, check out the site and give us feedback. I'm hoping, Right Honorable Speaker, you were also not denied access. Because you preside over the house that appropriated this money, why doesn't government want to account to us? Why? I made a suggestion here and I said, all of us in our constituencies where we come from, there's a health center, a government health center that doesn't have medicine, that doesn't have medical workers. Let's appropriate that money to those health centers because they are operational, as opposed to sinking it into something we don't quite understand. Right Honorable Speaker, this government has sunk lots of money into a Tiak sugar factory without much to show for it. The Parliamentary Budget Committee records reveal that so far 553.71 billion has been injected in the Tiak sugar factory project, but not a single grain of sugar has been produced.
Procedure, Speaker. Procedure, Speaker.
Right Honorable Speaker.
Procedure, Speaker.
Procedure?
Yes.
But
Mr.
Honorable,
Speaker.
it's
Yes.
wrong to access a microphone before, you know.
I apologize, Mr. Speaker. The Right Honorable Leader of the Opposition mentioned that you probably could have access to Lubowa, where the rest of us have not been able to access. And we have always been anxious to know. I had thought probably you'd confirm or deny, and wanted to be guided procedurally whether you would not advise us whether you went and probably which report you have for us, which I'm sure would enrich the LOPS.
I'm going on Wednesday. Yeah. Because the Speaker told you I would go on Wednesday, and and I will go on a Wednesday. Yeah, I'm waiting. Okay. Yeah. But Lop, I would guide our rules when you're reading a statement, and in the interest of time, because we have 30 minutes. I can see you've used 17. I would request you read the statement. Since you submitted a statement that is on our system and we are trying to follow.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Actually, what I'm reading is in that statement which was uploaded.
If you had done that, then my name wouldn't have even come here. That's on the light note.
Right Honorable Speaker, I just wanted to buttress the point that is uploaded thereon. But let me proceed. I was talking about Atiak Sugar Factory before I was interrupted by my land friend. 553.71 billion has been injected into the Atiak Sugar Factory project. But to date, no sugar has come from Atiak. And the citizens are asking, where is the value for our tax money? Right Honorable Speaker, the government borrowed money in 2021 for Karamoja Jinja Expressway to improve the connection between Kampala and Jinja cities and to neighboring countries along the northern corridor.
Kampala Jinja, for the record.
I beg your pardon, I mentioned Kampala, not Karamoja.
Yeah.
It's because I'm seeing some colleagues here from Karamoja. So I got to talk about our good colleagues. The Kampala Jinja Expressway to improve connection between Kampala and Jinja cities. And to date, Right Honorable Speaker, 0.1% of the borrowed money has been utilized. Consequently, we lose 24,000 man-hours every day due to traffic jams. We borrowed money, 0.1% of that has been utilized. Honorable Speaker, let me move on a bit. Let me skip some things since I'm short of time. Let me talk about corruption, which is a malignant cancer that has got to be urgently dealt with and very sternly. Honorable Speaker, it is our considered view that there must be firm commitment to effective and efficient service delivery, accountability, and zero tolerance for corruption. Our alternative budget priorities for the financial year 2024-2025 were anchored on the theme fostering resilient communities by combating corruption and promoting efficient service delivery. We are deliberate about this. And our alternative policy direction, and more so, the alternative budget ably articulates our unwavering stance on corruption. Uganda established a comprehensive anti-corruption system to combat the pervasive issue of corruption within the country. However, there is lack of commitment to this fight. The country continues to be ranked among the most corrupt in the world. This indicates underlying systemic issues that contribute to the persistence of corruption in our country. Every year, Transparency International disseminates results for the Corruption Perceptions Index. This CPI highlights how different countries score in the fight against corruption. According to Transparency International, its report of 2023, Uganda had a score of 26 out of 100. That's 26%. When ranked by score, Uganda placed 141st out of 180 nations in the index, with the first country having the most honest public sector. You can see where we lie, 141st out of 180. This is a clear indicator, Right Honourable Speaker, of how badly we are doing in our quest to deal with corruption. Right Honourable Speaker, the executive, judiciary and legislature, the same institutions tasked with safeguarding public funds, have been embroiled in a web of corruption. The legislature, which we are part of, is embroiled in corruption allegations that span from the distribution of iron sheets meant for Karamoja, the now infamous budget corruption, payments for war loss compensations to cooperatives, solicitation of funds, to mention a few. According to a report by the Inspectorate of Government titled Cost of Corruption in Uganda, the estimated cost of corruption per year is between 9.1 trillion at the lower end, according to that report, and 20 trillion on the upper end per year. And this is a report of a government entity. This amount represents a significant portion of Uganda's total government revenue and could be saved if corruption were dealt with firmly. The head of state's call for a caution on lifestyle audits is a slap in the face of every Ugandan who is yearning for a brighter future. We hear slogans of crushing corruption, but they are not followed by serious action. Mere words, Right Honourable Speaker, will not save the money that is meant to build schools, educate our children, or provide the much needed service delivery. We need results, not rhetoric. Right Honourable Speaker, for want of time, I'll skip the matter regarding our land sector, the land of Ugandans being grabbed, and it is grabbed by the mighty and powerful, and our people continue to suffer with, for many of them, the only asset which they do have. We must deal with these issues. Let me move to transport sector. Honourable Speaker and honourable colleagues, our transport sector presents a bleak image characterized by a system that falls short of meeting the fundamental needs of our citizens. This stifles economic progress. Central to the challenges faced by this neglected sector is the lamentable state of infrastructure, particularly roads, which serve as a vital conduit for both urban and rural connectivity. Failure to maintain roads effectively has resulted in many becoming nearly inaccessible during the rainy season, impeding movement and economic activity. The dire condition of our road network has far-reaching implications for both urban and rural communities. About 29% of Kampala's road network is in relatively good condition based on the International Roughness Index, road unevenness, with 71% in fair to poor condition. 71%. and yet the bulk of our revenue is collected here in Kampala. The deteriorating roads in Kampala metropolitan area exacerbate traffic congestion, prolong commute times, and raise vehicle operating expenses. Generally, most of the roads in Kampala are in overhaul. This not only consumes time and resources, but also has a negative impact on productivity. For example, in Kampala, traffic jam is a daily ordeal for commuters, resulting in loss of hours and decreased efficiency in business. But it's not just Kampala, Right Honorable Speaker and colleagues. In rural areas, the poor state of roads poses even greater challenges. Many rural communities rely on roads for access to essential services such as health, education, markets. However, during the rainy season, impassable roads cut off these communities from vital resources, exacerbating inaccessibility and hindering socio-economic development. For example, farmers struggle to transport their produce to markets, leading to losses and reduced income. Similarly, access to healthcare facilities becomes limited, putting lives at risk, especially in emergencies. Addressing these challenges, Right Honorable Speaker, requires coordinated efforts to streamline fund allocation, enhance procurement processes, and improve infrastructure maintenance capacity at all levels of government. Honorable Speaker, let me briefly talk about the healthcare system, which is deplorable. The dire state of the healthcare system is glaringly evident in rural areas where hospitals and clinics are often devoid of the most basic necessities. Imagine a mother in a remote village, desperate to find medicine for her sick child, only to discover that the nearest clinic is without essential drugs or even a qualified healthcare worker to offer assistance. This heartbreaking scenario plays out far too often across the country, leaving families devastated and communities vulnerable to the ravages of preventable diseases. Corruption within the healthcare sector has compounded service delivery challenges, creating a vicious cycle of deprivation and despair. Consider the case of a hospital where funds meant to purchase vital medical supplies mysteriously disappear into the pockets of corrupt officials. As a result, patients are left to suffer needlessly, their lives hanging in a balance as they wait in vain for treatment that may never come. Many of the calls all of us get from our constituents is to give them some money to go to a private healthcare facility, because the government one is not providing that. Meanwhile, those responsible for this embezzlement continue to enjoy lives of luxury, callously indifferent to the suffering they have caused. This is a flagrant violation of the right to health enshrined in both international law and our country's constitution. Honorable Speaker, let me move ahead again for want of time. Addressing the shortage of qualified healthcare workers, which is another of the challenges that we have, is imperative. Policies should focus on training, recruiting, and retaining healthcare professionals. Accordingly, the government should increase funding for medical education, offering scholarships and incentives for students to study medicine and nursing, and providing competitive salaries and benefits to attract and retain skilled healthcare workers in rural areas and in our country, because many of them run away to other countries where they are paid better. Government should also prioritize deployment of medical interns. Right Honorable Speaker, you did speak about that. Interns were protesting the other day. They are saying, we have studied for 5 years, deploy us so that we can work. Is government listening? Let me move ahead, Right Honorable Speaker, to number 6, the need to prioritize the agricultural sector. Right Honorable Speaker and colleagues, agriculture is Uganda's main economic driver, whether we want it or not, and it provides 70% of employment and contributes half of all exports and 1/4 of GDP. The agro-industrialization program received an allocation of 1.6 trillion shillings, representing 4.4% of the total national budget. This funding is insufficient, with over 54% of the sector's budget coming from external financing. There's an urgent need to increase the budget to at least 10%, in alignment with the 2013 Malabo Declaration on accelerated agricultural growth and transformation. In addition, Right Honorable Speaker and colleagues, we must prioritize agricultural mechanization, Many of our farmers lack access to appropriate technology at various stages of the agricultural value chain. The Ministry of Agriculture must develop and present a national mechanization strategy and equipment management and utilization policy to Parliament. This will help address the existing challenges and gaps in the mechanization strategy. Furthermore, there is need to allocate a budget for strengthening the public extension system and recruiting more extension workers in areas of high need. And we have many. By doing so, the government is tasked to facilitate a phased recruitment and deployment of additional extension workers. Fisheries subsector. Honorable Speaker and colleagues, this Parliament has received petitions numerously about the government's mismanagement of the fisheries subsector. The Fish Moors and Traders Association of Uganda Limited is concerned about the excessive taxes, missing trade agreements, increasing brutality by security personnel, and human rights violations in the disguise of fighting illegal fishing. Even after this Honourable House, this one, passed the Fisheries and Aquaculture Act of 2022 to manage the fisheries subsector in our country, human rights violations and torture are not accounted for in many of these operations on the lake by security agencies. Parliament has urged the Minister of Fisheries to introduce regulations for the Fisheries and Aquaculture Act of 2022 with no success. We also call for an investigation into atrocities committed by security personnel and for the perpetrators to be brought to justice and for the victims to be compensated. These are Ugandans trying to eke out a living. Honorable Speaker, we have challenges in our judicial system, in our justice system. It is plagued by chronic under-resourcing and inefficiency, leading to substantial delays in adjudicating cases. These delays have severely hindered the ability of the judiciary to provide timely and effective justice. For many Ugandans, the lack of affordable legal representation exacerbates the problem, resulting in stark disparities in access to justice. Those unable to afford lawyers often navigate the complex legal system without adequate support, which compromises their right to a fair trial. Judicial corruption is another significant issue undermining the justice system in Uganda, Right Honorable Speaker. Reports of judicial officers and court officials taking bribes to influence case outcomes are alarmingly uncommon. This corruption not only skews the administration of justice, but also erodes public confidence in the judiciary. For instance, individuals with financial means can often secure favorable verdicts through bribery. Even government officials have talked about this matter that I'm addressing, while those without such resources are left at a disadvantage. This pervasive corruption undermines the rule of law and perpetuates a sense of injustice among the populace. Honorable Speaker, resource constraints, slow case processing and corruption prolong suspect pre-trial detention. This is why many accused persons unlawfully spend months or years in detention before trial. This violates due process and fair trial, since it impacts people, families, and communities. Honorable Speaker, our colleagues who just returned from jail, who were brutally arrested as they were going for a press conference, the Honorable Francis Zake, Honorable Tebandeke Charles, and Honorable Sanchirumira, told us of many inmates they found in police detention facilities here at CPS. People have been there for weeks. It is wrong. And we must be able to address these issues. The other example, we have so many National Unity Platform and other opposition supporters languishing in various detention centers on trumped-up charges. Secondly, including NRM. Secondly, there have been cases where suspects of minor offenses have been jailed for longer than the maximum sentence they would have received if convicted. This is indicative of a justice system that is not only slow, but also indifferent to the plight of the less privileged. Honorable Speaker and colleagues, the lack of timely and fair adjudication has fostered a culture of impunity in our country, where those with power and resources exploit the system to their advantage. Furthermore, the judiciary struggles with severe resource constraints, and these have manifested in various forms, such as inadequate court facilities, insufficient staff, limited access to legal databases, and other necessary tools to do their work. These shortcomings have occasioned the challenge of case backlog and overburdened judicial officers who are unable to keep pace with the volume of cases that require adjudication. According to the Justice, Law and Order Sector report, courts closed, and colleagues listen to this, Courts closed with a pending caseload of 156,349 cases in 2021-2022, of which 42,960 were backlogged. This accounted for 27.48% of case backlog. It is problematic. These issues have been made worse by the absence of a strong legal aid system, which leaves the most vulnerable segments of society without access to legal assistance. The government should extend access to legal aid, enhance transparency and accountability, and increase financing of the judiciary. The justice system can only regain public confidence and maintain the rule of law by implementing such measures. Tourism, wildlife and antiquities. Right Honorable Speaker, this sector is a significant source of foreign exchange for our country, and it boasts of high returns on investment. This sector is the most appropriate means to revive our struggling economy, and it should be given the necessary attention and support to raise funds for the protection and enjoyment of other basic rights. However, Right Honorable Speaker, it is unfortunate that the government of Uganda provides insufficient funding for this sector, despite its economic potential. In 2022, for instance, tourism-related revenue and foreign exchange earnings totaled 2.7 trillion shillings. Yet the sector's approved budget has been stagnating between 193 billion and 248 billion in the last 5 financial years. This is a very fertile sector, because if you can reap 2.7 trillion when you inject about 200 billion, that means when you inject more, you reap a lot more. It's equally important to note that there is historical and cultural heritage sites with over 650 cultural sites which are underserved and underdeveloped for tourism. We need to fix this. Let me run to education, Right Honorable Speaker. The education sector in Uganda is plagued by severe underfunding, leading to a multitude of challenges which significantly impede the delivery of quality education. We have got overcrowded classrooms, which are a common sight, with student-to-teacher ratios far exceeding recommended levels. For example, a recent validation exercise done by the Education Service Commission revealed that the country required an extra workforce of 78,880 primary school teachers to reach the intended target of maintaining a 1:40 teacher-people ratio at the basic level. This, however, is far from being achieved. Overcrowding has not only hampered effective teaching and learning, but has also put a strain on the few resources that we have available, such as textbooks, desks, and other essential supplies. Many schools, particularly in rural regions, lack appropriate infrastructure, including poor sanitation, which negatively impacts on the learning environment. And that is a sight in all our constituencies, Right Honorable Speaker. A major contributing factor to the aforementioned challenges is the chronic shortage of qualified teachers. In many schools, especially those in remote areas, there are not enough teachers to meet the needs of the student population. This shortage forces schools to either combine classes or employ unqualified personnel, both of which negatively impact the quality of education. Right Honorable Speaker, I want to skip a bit for want of time. I talked about education and what I believe we need to do to fix it. Defense and Internal Affairs. The Ministry of Internal Affairs is entrenched in a mire of corruption and inefficiency, failing utterly in its mandate to provide effective policing and public safety services. The high crime rates, coupled with the pervasive lack of trust in law enforcement agencies, expose the ministry's glaring incompetence and systemic failure. The rampant corruption within the police force and other internal affairs departments is a cancer eating away at the very fabric of our society. Bribery and favoritism are not just occasional occurrences. They are the norm, unfortunately, and they severely undermine justice and security. There are widespread reports and incidents of excessive use of force, arbitrary arrests and torture. These abuses are often directed at political opponents and even ordinary citizens. For example, during political gatherings, the police routinely uses excessive force, including firing live ammunition and unnecessary tear gas, resulting in injuries and fatalities. Arbitrary arrests and detention are rampant, with individuals being held without trial, sometimes for extended periods. In a number of cases, what we see is abduction of citizens by plain-clothed, gun-wielding men who take these people to unknown places. And many have since been missing for years. For example, John Bosco Chibalama, who has been missing for over 4 years. Yet, the Right Honorable Prime Minister, Robin Anabanja, admitted that he was arrested by the state and he's in the hands of the state. Of late, the same is happening even to members of parliament. We saw what happened in the past to Honorable Segirinya, Honorable Sewanyana, and most recently to the Honorable Paul Akamba, who is one of us, who belongs to the NRM. But he was abducted, and for about 3 or so days, no one knew where he was. It is wrong, whether it happens to the opposition or to people from the ruling party. Right, Honorable Speaker, when these practices become normalized, because everyone gets to be a potential victim, that's what happens when we normalize them, as we are witnessing today. What's particularly disturbing, Right Honorable Speaker, is the abdication of duty by the Uganda Human Rights Commission, a body explicitly mandated to safeguard the rights of our citizens. This commission has shamelessly turned a blind eye to these atrocities, failing in its core responsibility to protect the vulnerable and uphold justice. This neglect not only emboldens the perpetrators, but also undermines the trust and faith of the people in our institutions that are meant to protect them. I want to skip a bit, Right Honorable Speaker, for want of time, and move to my conclusion. Right Honorable Speaker and honorable colleagues, the spirit under which we raise these issues is not just because we are only mandated to do so as per the legal and policy frameworks under which we operate. It is a nationalistic one, because the concerns I've raised, we see them where we come from. We see them among the people we lead, who keep calling us to fill in the gaps where government is meant to be taking action. When the country is sinking, Right Honorable Speaker, we cannot all just become spectators to cheerlead those who are steering our country to complete destruction, as per the examples that I have given. I see Honorable Magezi is mad. I have listed the examples, many of which are happening in the constituencies where we come from, including the one which you used to represent, because you don't represent it anymore, sir. Right Honorable Speaker, we must take a step forward to put up a spirited fight to redeem our country from those who wield power and they are irresponsibly using it contrary to the citizenry wishes and aspirations. As a government in waiting, because we shall continue to do whatever is possible within our reach to bring about a positive change aimed at restoring the original glory of our country. I therefore implore each one of us, Right Honorable Speaker, to reflect on these issues and act swiftly on them for the good of all of us and those who shall come after us. I beg to submit. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you. Our colleagues,